If you look at the breach here. I click once and the whole screen is just gone. Yeah, that's a great showcase of how just ridiculous it looks when you have this this headhunter modifier. So I thought I would do an update video on my Ice Nova Gemling. I got some really expensive gear on this character right now. So this gear is around a bit over 1,000 divines, I would say, as like an estimate. And I think in this video I'll showcase a few maps to see how effective the build is at a really high budget like this, and then I'll just discuss all the gear and the changes I've done. And also I did write a guide for this build on Mobalytics, so I just wrote down anything I could think of that I've learned and that could be like helpful and relevant for the build. And here I also wrote down a like a lowest minimum required budget, I would call it, and then a high budget, which is the one I'm showing off in this video. That's pretty much the same as this one, just to show all the possible upgrades and options for the build. If you have any questions or if something is unclear, just tell me in the comments and I'll try to respond, and also maybe update the guide as well. So I'll showcase first a completely normal tier 15 map, and then I'll do another that is 200% delirious to see like what a more difficult map would look like with this build. Now, of course, this is a bit over 1,000 divine budget build, so pretty much any build will look good with this type of budget. I also have like a headhunter here, a rite of passage, golden charm, and my Ice Nova is currently level 39, which is extremely high. And considering I also have a wand setup as well, right? But the build feels extremely good to play. You can see the area of effect is extremely big right now. There's also this chain reaction happening because of cast and critical. And in a normal map like this, I tend to one-shot like pretty much everything. It's pretty lucky, but like that Rogue Exile just got one-shot by a normal Ice Nova. So the mana is pretty good because I rely a lot on picking up the mana remnants. So sometimes it goes out of mana if there's no remnants nearby, or like in certain situations. But other than that, it's perfectly fine. And yeah, you can see the boss damage here. I tend to use Frost Wall for extra damage on bosses. That's a one shot there, as there's a lot of lightning infused Frost Walls that all overlap the damage as well, so that is extremely good single target damage. It's also because I'm using Cascade on the Frost Wall, so they tend to not replace each other, and like, if they can overlap like that, it's extremely good damage. So I'll show a 200% delirious map as well. These tend to, of course, be a lot more difficult content. The max difficulty should be when you have 3 delirium tablets like this. It's still, of course, perfectly fine to clear. The damage is like enough, more than enough for almost all situations. But this is a pretty difficult map, I believe. If you look here, yeah, 48% effectiveness and then 14% more effectiveness on the mobs. And yeah, I'm not sure if too many of the other ones matter. But of course I have like Headhunter and stuff like that, so as soon as I get a bunch of stacks in Headhunter, you just get way more powerful. quite a mess with all the visual effects from the ice crystals and headhunter and all that. So. There is also one of the headhunter effects. It gives you like, it multiplies your area of effect by like 2 or 3, and it looks. I really want to showcase what that looks like as well on this build, because that. Yeah, you can imagine the area of effect is just ridiculous then, and then the damage also overlapped a bunch, way more. So we'll see if I can get that effect to show as well. I have died a few times with when I'm playing 200% delirious maps like this, but that's just when I walk into a bunch of elemental damage and they all hit me at the same time. That's the only situations I've died with this build, so the defenses are pretty good, I would say. I have managed to get 10 Arctic armor stacks, so that's giving a bunch of increased armor. Yeah, the boss dies actually very quickly here as well. Okay, so I'll play a few maps and see if I can get the headhunter effect that gives me more area of effect. Okay, so I got the effect now. This is, you can see the ice nova just covers the whole screen basically. And yeah, the AoE clear now is just ridiculous whenever I get this effect. As you can probably see. The whole screen is just covered in this white fog. I cleared pretty much the whole map now, but yeah, it's always fun to get this certain specific headhunter effect. You can see the boss damage as well, because the ice crystals also have way more area of effect. Yeah, that's pretty good. This map is also 200% delirious, so. So about the gear, instead of using a staff, I'm now using a wand and a scepter. And this is because I had like enough damage to not need the extra damage on the staff. And I wanted the extra spirit for additional persistent skills. Now this setup has worked really well, so I wonder if maybe swapping from a staff to a wand and scepter really early is better. I'm not exactly sure, but since this scepter is extremely broken, because it gives you up to 60% damage as extra fire with the spirit, and also the persistent skill here. You can sock it to any like support gem that requires spirit, but it doesn't have any spirit cost when using this one, because like I guess because this skill is free, then all the support gems are free as well. But this kind of seems like a bug and is pretty broken, but it makes the scepter setup way better, because I have this like extra mana regen, max life on kill. And also this support gem, it's pretty expensive at like 78, but around that. But so it's not that important, but it gives like enemies that are near me, I deal more damage to them and I take less damage from them. Yeah, this wand is pretty cracked. I do have the Alder's Legacy. This rune costs like 300 divines, really expensive, but it's also extremely good. So in total, a wand now is giving me plus 8 levels for all my cold skills, which is pretty insane. Another big change is that I'm no longer using these unique gloves. So these gloves set your crit chance to 250, but since I'm scaling crit so much right now that they're not like worth using, there's so many sources of crit damage, because I got a bunch of these really powerful jewels. It's like a way to craft jewels with 5 useful, like to always craft them with 5 good modifiers. So I have a bunch of these jewels that are just extremely broken, that give crit chance and crit damage, most of them. And some of them give area of effect as well, but most of them give crit damage and crit chance. So when you have all those jewels, these are no longer worth to use these unique gloves, so it's also very nice to just use normal gloves, for that's another place to have like chaos resistance and armor applies to elemental damage. That's another very important modifier for the defenses of the build. Of course, I changed my tree a lot. Because these jewels are so powerful, I think this is like the ideal setup for the tree, where you just take almost all the jewel sockets in the tree. So I no longer need to use that split personality as well. But if your jewels are like not nearly as good as this might not be worth it, but maybe it is. Because you can get pretty good jewels for like 1 div now, or 2 div, so maybe it's worth it to use this layout if you're level 90 or above, right? I haven't done too extensive testing on that. I am using Powered by Verisium now, so this gives 4 Verisium infusions. So previously I just used Frost Bomb, so that gave me 1 Cold Infusion, and that's enough to just spam Ice Nova. But Powered by Verisium gives you these Verisium infusions. They can be used in place of any elemental. So when I give me these 4 and I use Ice Wall, it will use 3 of the infusions to just empower all 3 Frost Walls. So that's like a huge benefit of these Verisium infusions. So I need like a little bit of ward to use this. But there is one like kind of annoying thing about this, and that is if I use Frost Wall like this and then I use another Frost Wall, my Ice Nova now no longer have any infusions to use, right? Because it consumed all the Verisium infusions on the Ice Wall. So sometimes if you're doing like pinnacle bosses, I usually need to keep this in mind, but for map bossing I usually have a bunch of infusions stocked up from the Siphon elements. But it's like one kind of annoying thing about this Powered by Verisium. But I still think it's better overall compared to Frostbomb. Another thing just to mention, I have the skill gems balanced here because of the gem studded, so there's a bunch of skill gems like this one on Spellslinger that I don't use. They're just to balance out the support gems here. As well, I have a bunch on Powered by Verisium here that just gives useless effects just to balance out skill gems. I got Frostwall here. I'm trying to maximize damage. I'm also using this Verglass, of course, on Ice Nova, but Verglass, I thought you had to break the ice crystals with the skill that had Verglass. But you just need to break the ice crystals with any skill, and then your skills with Verglass get the bonus. So you can see the damage here goes up a bunch once I had the Verglass bonus, even on my Frost Wall. So that makes, yeah, that just gives me a bunch of extra damage in Frost Wall as well, used for bossing. Siphon Elements just for all the extra infusions. Even the lightning ones are useful now with the Frost Wall, right? Then cast Uncritical with Ice Nova, and Astral Projection is important, just for that chain reaction type of clear. I am using Charge Regulation actually, and this is a bit of extra damage, because whenever I have a power charge, I get more critical hit chance, and if you have this notable, you get a power charge when you consume an infusion, and you always consume them, or they count as being consumed when you use Ice Nova. So this is like some extra damage you can get for 30 Spirit. Now you do need this notable, which usually takes 6 skill points, and it's probably worth it if you have like this 30 Spirit to spend on it for free. But another thing about my build I can show now is this. I got pretty lucky with this Megalomaniac, and that's what's giving me the infusion of power. And if you think about it, if you just have a, for example in my situation, giving me infusion of power saves me 6 skill points. And the thing is, I can take another jewel socket here for 5 skill points. So just from that infusion of power effect, it's actually a positive to have this Megalomaniac, if you think about it in that way, right? It gives you 1 skill point for free. And in addition to that, I found one Megalomaniac with this magnum opus, which is like one of those new kind of secret notables. You can only get it through other sources like anointing or a Megalomaniac, right? And this one gives me increased effect of my charms per empty charm slot. So it's extremely powerful with my, because it does work with a rite of passage as well. I've tested this. It gives me double the effect of this, what it says here. So that would be 60% skill speed and 30% move speed. And also 40% damage as lightning. And when I clear mobs really quickly, this one is always active, because I get enough charges back within the 19 seconds to proc it again, right? So that has been like a huge upgrade as well. I also have this charm just to be immune to slows and a bit of extra move speed as well. So, and for the rest of my persistent skills, we have Blink, of course, with very long distance now. I corrupted it to give it more quality, and it's level 20 persistent now, so that's one of the longest blinks possible, I think. Well, you can get it longer, of course, but yeah, it's a very long distance. Mana Remnants, pretty important for mana, or very important for mana, and then Arctic Armor. And this one is level 38, which gives me... I don't remember exactly where the breakpoint was, but it gives me 10 charges maximum. That's pretty important to get a bunch of armor, right? So for 80% increased armor from this one persistent. So my armor is pretty good now, even though I'm using a lore weave on my body armor. I have a lot of armor anyways, so that's 26k armor and 30k armor applying to elemental damage. Then about the rest of my gear, these... So I have the armor helmet, armor boots, and armor gloves, and these are all pretty much the same, where I try to maximize armor and max life. And they just have normal resistances, chaos resistance, right? Anything defensive on these three that I could think of. And also they all have the armor applies to elemental damage roll as well, which is very important for the defenses of this build. For the ring, there's a bunch of good modifiers you can have on the ring. This is probably not the best ring ever, right? But it gives all modifiers that I want, so it finishes off my resistances. Gives some area of effect, some mana, some cost efficiency, and spell damage. So the amulet is the same as I've shown in my previous videos, so you can get +4 of all spell skills if you have the caster quality up to 40%, so you need like 36% or something to get +4, so you turn the +3 into +4. And this amulet is like, it turned out extremely good, because I got the tier 1 increased armor actually, and got cast speed and spell damage as well, so like all the modifiers are good here. I was really lucky to get all that. And then my lore weave. Now, it's perfectly fine to use like a normal body armor like this. That just gives a bunch of armor. So you would have like a lot better defenses with a body armor like this. Like here I have 50,000 armor applying to elemental damage. And 35,000 armor normally. But I really like this lore weave. I don't really know how exactly the lore weaves like roll, or how rare this one is, but I found this one on trade and it's like extremely good for my build, because some lore weaves can roll with like higher ranges and things. So usually they are, let's see here, 2 to 5% quality, but this one is 0 to 7%. And it's like this for all the modifiers, so it can roll -100 to 100% increased rarity. And then it also makes other modifiers to rarity not apply. So I spent a really long time. I think I spent like 100 divining this one just to get a positive effect on like all of the different ones. I think it's very unlikely to get a better one than this, but I might have to spend hundreds more divines if I want that right. So yeah, as I said, it gives like all the rarity I have in my build is from this body armor. 4% quality, it gives cast speed. It sets my resist to 76. It gives me onslaught on 4 seconds on kill. And it also gives me, this last modifier is extremely good as well. It's a chance for spell damage with crits to be lucky. And that's a really high multiplier as well. So usually, my Ice Nova is, if I have the charge regulation active, which I have pretty much all the time, it's a bit over 50% crit chance. And then with I'm using ambush for just to make clearing normal mobs way easier. This one guarantees the crit when they're full life, so it will it doubles the crit chance, which will guarantee a crit. Yeah, and then with this, of course, there's a big chance that that crit is lucky as well. Frostwall as well is like 50%, around 50% crit chance when charge regulation is active, so yeah. But again, I'm not sure how rare a lore weave this good is. I have no idea how exactly they roll, but I found... I'm very happy I found this one on trade. Also, a little tech with lore weave is that you can use this rune to give you 20% of all elemental resistances, but the negative effect here doesn't matter because it just sets the resistances to 76. So this one giving less to all resists just doesn't have any effect. And of course I'm using the Fox Idol for 5% quality of all skills. Also using Spell Cascade, the support gem on Ice Nova is another option. That is, some people have, or some people really like it, because the damage of these three can overlap. So enemies in the middle here get hit by all three when you have enough area of effect. So on bosses this will do like triple damage, right? When I've tried this, I've had like a kind of bug where the additional cascades they're not cold infused. And I'm not sure why that happens, it just happens randomly whenever I enter maps. And also the negatives of having less damage and less area of effect is a big negative, so I prefer using other supports, but maybe that's just because I have such a high damage at this point in the game. Another thing is that I'm using this Vorana Siege on Ice Nova. Now this is like, it's an alternative to a magnified area where it gives a bit less area of effect, but it does more damage against isolated targets. So usually the problem with Ice Nova is just the tanky single target enemies, right? So that's why I think this one is better. But it's not like it's not a big upgrade, and it does cost a few divines as well. So it's just an alternative to magnified area. Okay, so I want to try to showcase the defenses of the build real quick, because the amount of effective health pool isn't that high, and the armor is pretty good, but also not extremely high. So I'll just try to stand still and get hit by some enemies, because there are situations where you can easily die. Okay, I gotta turn off my cast on critical because it activates from Arctic armor. But it's working very well here. This Rogue Exile is fighting the enemies though, which I think is why. But yeah, I do bleed out from damage over time. Some situations. Okay, this looks scary. I'm gonna use my pot here to heal. I am dying slowly, but eventually to enemies like this. Especially chaos damage is extra dangerous. Right there, I almost died again. As yeah, like armor doesn't work for damage over time. Effects like this on the ground, I believe. Armor has like no effect. And also I have armor applying to elemental damage, but not armor applying to chaos damage. So chaos damage is a bit more dangerous. Yeah, right here. Yeah, the ground here is making me take chaos damage over time, and like armor does nothing for that. So it's a pretty bad part of it. But yeah, I was saying armor has no effect on damage over time, but if you get ignited by enemies by a hit, that armor does have an effect because it reduces the fire damage you take, so which causes the ignite to be lower damage. Okay, those enemies don't really do any damage. I'll check out the map boss, how much damage it does. But yeah, chaos damage is one of the more dangerous things. Like a map could have, let me see here. It could have damage added as chaos, but this map doesn't. This has damage as extra fire. Also, crits are not supposed to... I believe they don't have any effect on me because I have this... the gem studded effect here, causing crits to have no crit damage bonus. Since all the gems have the same value, all of them should be active. So that's like a huge positive defensive layer for Gemling. Okay, yeah, it's for sure easy to die in situations like that where there's so many overlapping like elemental ground effects, right? But in pretty much all situations it takes like a big mistake to die, right? Where you get hit by multiple things at the same time. Or one of those powerful map boss attacks could one-shot you, like depending on the mods on the map. Like if the boss has damage as extra chaos, I think it will do a lot more damage. I'm gonna turn off all the headhunter effects. I think some many attacks here just way less damage than others. That's not even close to one shot. I'm gonna use a healing potion. Yeah. This is not the most dangerous boss in the game for sure, but... Oh, yeah. Especially some of his attacks. You can get a good idea of the damage here. There are for sure attacks that could one-shot you if you're not careful, and if the map has like damage as extra chaos, for example. That should show the defenses pretty well, but obviously, usually, I almost never get hit with how much I'm freezing enemies and bosses. I have tried a bit to use Mind Over Matter for better defenses, but it was a bit too annoying for the mana, I would say. But for sure very manageable and an option. But if you have this, you should also have, like, all your gear should have increased mana instead of maximum life. And also, like, some percentage mana on your rings, I would say, at least, as well. Yeah. And of course, you don't need to have, I don't know if I mentioned it, but you don't need to have lore wave. If you have a normal armor, body armor, you can have a lot better defenses. Or a lot more armor at least. Like if I swap to this body armor, I had a good amount more armor and especially way more armor applying to elemental damage. So I had 35k with this and here I have 25k. So I would say that's recommended for most people. Although I have been using Lore personally the most. So yeah, so if you have any questions or if you feel like something's missing or if something's unclear, just tell me in the comments. And that's pretty much it.